Success depends on preparation, and without such preparation, there will certainly be failure. Confucius: preparation time is more important than execution. Nanang akasimanu: preparation takes precedence over action. Guy Zimmerlich. Hello to you all, and welcome to this 5th training unit, Lesson Preparation and Delivery, of the 3rd training module, Teaching and Learning Mathematics. The previous training units, 1, 2, 3, and 4 of Module 3, allowed us to use ICT to improve the quality of your math lessons, review the different theories related to the teaching and learning of mathematics, design and carry out teaching and learning activities in mathematics, use the epistemology of mathematics to motivate your students and improve the quality of your mathematics lesson. It is in this training unit that we will now take advantage of all the knowledge and skills from the previous units. Indeed, lesson preparation is the best way to design an innovative and engaging lesson and deliver it effectively. As a math teacher, lesson plans also help you stay on track to ensure your learners meet their goals and targets in line with your educational plan. However, first of all, I want to remind you that no one can learn what they think they already know. That is why he who dares to teach must not stop learning, especially when he thinks he already knows. Because, as we have become accustomed to repeating during this training, it is what we already know that often prevents us from learning. Claude Bernard. And given the interest of mathematics for our society today and tomorrow, it is important to break away from this idea, this habit, this conformism, which prevents us from moving forward. This is why we are now going to review what we know or believe we already know. And this is also the reason why I wish to have your full attention. And it is the same reason that I attempt to draw your attention. So, since every lesson must be an answer, we will answer the following question. 1, what is lesson preparation? 2, why should you prepare a lesson? 3, how to prepare a lesson? 4, how to make a lesson plan? 5, what does lesson delivery mean? And 6, how to deliver a lesson. What is lesson preparation? As you know, as a mathematics teacher, it is necessary to define any concept that one wishes to present and manipulate to ensure that everyone has the same vision, the same idea, and the same understanding of the concept. This is why, considering the importance of preparation for a teacher in general, and for the mathematics teacher who now wishes to teach mathematics differently in particular, it is important that we respond to the question, what is lesson preparation? The psychoeducator, M3TU5, offers us the following definition. Preparing a lesson, a course, a training sequence, is to design an educational device capable of motivating those who have to learn. It is to present rigorous contents and to allow their gradual appropriation, provide the necessary evaluations, organize the systems of recourse for those who are in difficulty or in failure. In short, preparing a lesson is deliberately standing on the side of the learner and preparing the way for his learning, his or her learning. It is questioning knowledge to find the means to make it accessible. It is working to involve those who are learning, because without their help, their active participation, the mobilization of their intelligence, the project is doomed in advance. To this end, preparing a lesson does not mean resorting to a manual, because the manual only offers activities, texts, or manipulations that can serve as a basis or suggest ideas. Preparing a lesson does not mean using old personal lecture notes or those of a more or less experienced colleague. Preparing a lesson is not also limited to preparing teaching material, an activity, or course content. This is, in many cases, necessary, but not sufficient. It also is not just knowing the subject to be taught. Rather, it is answering the following questions. 1, why are we teaching this lesson? 2, what goal do you want to achieve by teaching this lesson? 3, what strategy, the organization of teaching aids and activities, will we use to achieve this goal? And how are we going to check whether this goal has been achieved by all the students? Why do we prepare a lesson? Now that we have reviewed the meaning of lesson preparation, let us now ask ourselves about the value of lesson preparation. Indeed, why do we prepare a lesson? To understand the value of preparing a lesson, let's question the consequences of poor preparation. Indeed, as Dell points out in his article, Methodology of Primary Education, published in 1968, poor preparation, or lack of preparation, makes the math teacher hesitant and even anxious. It gives rise to the inconsistency and obscurity. It wastes precious time in unnecessary tangents and makes the highlighting of the essentials uncertain. And, moreover, bogs down the lesson in unimportant consideration. It generates poor performance and even assimilates errors. It causes a lack of activity and, consequently, a lack of discipline. Indeed, the preparation of a lesson is a work where hazardous experiments and failures of the sorcerer's apprentice are prohibited. As a play or a film requires a script and meticulous preparation, the realization of a lesson or of a teaching sequence also demands meticulous preparation, because the future of humanity, of our children, our society, cannot be resolved by improvisation. This is why, as a mathematics teacher, if the slogan, "Teach mathematics differently," has a meaning for you, it is necessary to give lesson preparation its place in your teaching activities and not to hide behind the routine or your experience as a math teacher. Because, as you already know, the same causes produce the same effects. That is why I invite you now to pause this video, to take a piece of paper, and to note your commitment to now include preparing lessons in your teaching habit. Consider placing this piece of paper near the eyes to remind you of your commitment. What teaching resources should be used to prepare a lesson? To prepare a lesson, you'll need the following resources: the mathematics syllabus of the class you are teaching, the teacher roadmap of the class for the current year, the outline of scheme of work for the class of the current year, your individual timetable in the school in order to schedule the lesson in your most suitable time slot reserved for your class, the textbook for the class, as in the book list, and other textbooks. We have already presented the interest of each of these different educational documents during Training Unit 1 of Module 2. If you have not yet read that training unit, I invite you to do so. How to prepare a lesson. As we have already pointed out, every lesson must be an answer. That is, it must meet a need, because we only learn that which answers the problem that we ask ourselves. To identify the activities to be carried out during the preparation of a lesson, all you have to do is answer the following questions, among others perhaps. 1, what am I going to teach? 2, who am I going to teach? 3, how and with what will I teach it? 4, when will I teach it and for how long? 5, what to remember at the end of the lesson? And 6, how will I check for understanding? Organizing a lesson plan. Now that you have answered all the questions related to the preparation of your lesson, it is time to organize this information in the form of a lesson plan sheet. Indeed, a lesson plan sheet consists mainly of 2 parts: the header, also called the preamble of the lesson plan, and the progress sheet. So, in the first part, the preamble of a lesson plan sheet should allow you to organize the following information: the class concerned by the lesson, the sequence, order number of the lesson in the sequence, the date you plan to teach the lesson, the duration of the lesson. The estimation of the duration is important for the planning of the activities according to the rhythm of your students. The size of your class, The size of your classroom. It is important to specify the number of girls and boys. This information allows you to think about the gender approach during your preparation. The title of the chapter, the title of the lesson, the educational objectives to be achieved at the end of your lesson. You can also set intermediate goals, allowing you to easily access the overall goal. The motivation of the lesson for your student. The material to be provided by you and your student. The type of assessment expected at the end of the lesson. The progress sheet. The progress sheet allows you to prepare the methodology and especially chronological organization of your lesson. It is organized as a table of 5 columns and several rows according to the parts of your lesson. Let's take a look at these columns and rows. So for the columns, the progress sheet has the following 5 columns. A stage or duration column. It is in this column that you will specify the phases or parts of your lesson according to their chronology, with the duration that you have planned for each part. It is important to note that in the literature, an entire column can be dedicated to time. A column, teacher activity. It is in this column that you must specify the activity that you will perform during the lesson. You can also write down the questions you have prepared for each phase or activity. A column, learner activity. It is in this column that you will specify the activities that you plan for the learner based on your own. As you have understood, the learner must be as active and as involved as possible in order to guarantee the success of your lesson. A column, teaching and learning point. This column will allow you to specify the objective to be achieved by each activity. An observation column as well. This part of your progress sheet is reserved for the various remarks that you can make during the course of your lesson. For example, the shortcomings that you observed, the parts where the students had difficulties and which you think you can improve, etc. The rows. The rows of the sheet specify the stages of your lesson. We offer you a progress sheet with 5 parts. However, we draw your attention that according to your needs, you can add parts. The first part, entitled Introduction, is the place for checking and evaluating the prerequisites. We recommend that you always add your prerequisites to the activity sheet to ensure that the whole class has mastered them. The second part, entitled Problem Situation and Learning Activity, is the place where the problem situation is presented and the activity prepared for the lesson is carried out. If your problem situation is contained in the activity sheet, it is necessary to present it to the students. You will notice that being organized in this way will allow you to save time. However, it must already be foreseen, hence the need for the preparation of lessons. The third part, entitled Summary, allows you to define what the learner must keep as a course note in his notebook. In general, it will be a question of institutionalizing the properties discovered. The fourth part, entitled Application Exercises, aims to check the achievements of your students. You will note that it can be included in the activity sheet in order to save time. This also is the place for your self-assessment. The quality of your teaching is linked to the ability of your students to properly apply the concept learned. The last part that we have is called conclusion. It is the place of the summary of the lesson. It is here that you must note the duties and details to announce the next lesson. Delivering a lesson. As we have had to point out in the introduction to this module, good teaching is a quarter of preparation and 3/4 of pure theatricality. Indeed, preparing your lesson well is an essential activity for the reasons which we have already presented. However, as you know, an ideal is of no value if you cannot put it into practice. Swami Ramdas. Because there are in the putting into practice of ideas these failures and these successes which build experiences. Patrick Lewis. This is why, before completing this training unit, it is important for us to answer the following questions related to the conduct of the lesson. What is lesson delivery? How to deliver a lesson? What is lesson delivery? What is lesson delivery? Delivering a lesson is the operationalization or scripting in the classroom of the lesson plan or scenario produced during the preparation of a lesson. As you have no doubt noticed, the lesson plan sheet obtained at the end of the preparation activity for a lesson specifies the different stages of your lesson, the time for each stage, and the actions that each actor, student and teacher, must take during the said lesson. A planned lesson is worthless if interesting delivery procedures, as well as good classroom management techniques, are not highlighted. So, how do you conduct a lesson? How to conduct a lesson. There is no magic formula, abracadabra, that can be used every time in a classroom situation to guide you through each step of your lesson delivery. Therefore, it is important to note that the right approach is one that encourages learner-centered and activity-based learning. Such an approach aims to improve the teaching learning process through the use of real examples or situations or resources or materials, whether conventional or improvised. Furthermore, since conducting lessons is the real experience in the classroom, good lesson management must consider the quality of classroom activities in terms of student involvement and growth as essential to achieve the course objectives given. Learner-centered learning requires a well-run classroom with clear rules and guidelines. To conduct your mathematics lessons well, here are some recommendations you can apply as you deliver your lessons. Number 1, demonstrate appropriate personal qualities. For this, you must have good control of your class, be audible and fluent, use language appropriate to the level of the target learners. You must be neat, smart, and modest in your dress so as not to distract the student. You must teach in a clean environment. You must be a good time manager. Be enthusiastic and open-minded. Be sympathetic. Demonstrate intellectual honesty. 2, start your lessons with clear instructions. At the risk of instructions, it is important to note here that clear instructions make it possible to involve your students in the topic and to motivate them to participate in the class. To do this, you should give a brief agenda on the board or on a lesson handout, discuss the rationale for the lesson, describe on the board or on a handout, even the activity sheet, the learning objectives. Make sure the whole class is paying attention. For example, checking that all distractions have been removed. Start your lesson with a highly motivating activity. Check the prior knowledge in order to build the lesson on the prior knowledge of the learner. Number 3, establish a positive classroom environment. To do this, you must make the classroom a pleasant and friendly place. Accept individual differences. Allow cooperative work during your learning activities in order to develop solidarity and humility among your students. Create a non-threatening learning environment. Organize physical space. Eliminate situations that may be dangerous or disruptive. Establish rules and procedures in the classroom and constantly reinforce them. Number 4, maintaining student attention. Maintaining student attention while conducting a lesson is one of the most important challenges in ensuring that your students understand your lesson. To do this, you must use random selection to appeal to learners by varying who you are calling and what you are calling them. Ask questions before calling on a learner. Wait at least 5 seconds for a response. Be animated by showing enthusiasm and interest to your students. Reinforce student efforts with praise. Vary teaching methods. Provide work of appropriate difficulty. Seek out and use the opinions and ideas of learners. Number 5, use an appropriate pace. As we have already highlighted in the 3rd training unit of the 2nd module, some of your students will be as fast as hares on land and others as slow as turtles. This does not mean that these students are not able to understand the concept being taught. Therefore, you should be aware of your teaching pace. Give students enough time to engage meaningfully in each activity of the lesson. Wait for signs that children are becoming confused, bored, or agitated. Sometimes the lesson needs to be shortened, and if so, this is the time to comment on the observation part of your preparations in order to improve future lessons. Indeed, it is much easier to prepare a course for the second time, provided, of course, that you have learned from your first experience. 6. Propose suitable activities. It is no longer important here to remind yourself of the value of using activity in your math lesson. Indeed, your activities must be diagnostic and normative. Here is why you should provide simple step-by-step instructions for each activity. Develop procedure for your students to request help. This is why your students should have a help signal that they can use as needed to get your attention on a specific issue. Develop procedures for knowing what to do when finished. Travel to monitor activities and meet individual needs. Walk around. Provide opportunities for students to relate lesson activities to concepts being taught. Organize group activities that allow students to share their own opinions or ideas and verify them through experiences, hands-on activities or facts. Organize a whole class discussion in which students share differing opinions and actively harmonize various findings. Monitor your progress towards the lesson objectives. Number 7, evaluate what happened in your lesson. As we will see in the next training unit of this module, evaluation is an approach or tool that consists of gathering information about the learning or the development of the student towards a lesson or a concept being taught. This information must be analyzed and interpreted by you to determine the level of understanding of your students in order to make a judgment of the situation of each student and to make a decision regarding their subsequent learning. Therefore, you should determine if the lesson was successful. Have the objectives been achieved? Focus on the positive gains made by students. Use surprise reinforcers as a direct result of their good behavior. 8. Summarize the main points of the lesson. It is important that at the end of your lesson, your students can write down the main points of the completed lesson. To do this, you should have the students state the main points of the lesson and review the students' answer. Guide the students to draw conclusions. Give deepening exercises. Preview the next lesson. Number 9, develop positive teacher-student relationships throughout the lesson. While conducting a lesson, you should also create or strengthen the bonds necessary to build or maintain trust between you and your students. This is why you must set a good example, be a positive role model, create an exciting learning environment for all students, reward every good behavior, create special activities that the students will like to do, correct bad behavior. To this end, each disruptive behavior must have consequences, which is why these consequences must be known to your learners. Treat students' concerns carefully. Provide students with the opportunity to ask and receive specific answers to their questions. Manage disruptions. Keep it short and simple. Use a warning system and proactively report disruptive behavior. Eye contact, tight space between you and your student, head or hand gestures, all of these things work. Help students succeed. Use planned ignorance and teach other students also to be ignored. The development of communication techniques in the classroom is an additional asset because communication in the classroom is essential in the conduct of a lesson. For effective communication in the classroom, the teacher must ensure that the arrangement is one that will ensure the full participation of the learner. Consider the accent, the needs of the student, and their cultural background. Strive to support learners with special needs. Despite your preparation, you may not be completely satisfied at the end of a lesson. Perhaps you have not been able to carry out all of your activities, such as planning or a major incident such as the state of health of a student disrupting your class. Don't be too hard on yourself. Write down areas for improvement on the observation section of your lesson sheet. Process of preparing and delivering a lesson. Preparing and delivering a lesson is a process. It begins with mastery of the quality of a good mathematics lesson presented in the 4th training unit of Module 2, and knowledge of the official program presented in the 1st training unit of the same module. These two inputs being mastered, you can then prepare, evaluate, revise your lesson, and then you can pass it, you can deliver it in the classroom, of course, by applying the recommendations that we have suggested. But be careful. The preparation and delivery of a lesson does not end after the scripting phase in the classroom. You must evaluate your lesson delivery and note the points to improve or revise. This process of preparing and delivering a lesson can be summarized by the following 2 diagrams. The first represents the process of preparing and delivering a good lesson that we have just presented. And the second represents a non-exhaustive list of the various inputs necessary for a good preparation and delivery of the lesson. In this diagram, TPCK stands for Teacher Pedagogical Content Knowledge. We would like to point out here that these inputs are mainly the tools or concepts used to enrich the lesson, reinforce the effectiveness of the learning, and soften the delivery of the lesson. Conclusion. Preparing a lesson is one of the most important activities of any mathematics teacher who wishes to teach mathematics in a different way to increase the effectiveness of his or her teaching. While preparing your lessons, it is important to keep in mind that a lesson can only be effective if it is an answer to a question asked, because your students will mainly learn that which answers the problems they have. A well-prepared lesson makes lesson delivery easy, clear, and digestible. As you know, coming together is a start, staying together is progress, and working together is success. Don't forget to share your ideas and questions in the forum. You can also go to the TTP Community of Practice platform via the following link, https://aimsttp.org/COP, in order to discuss with the members of your cluster. Alone, we go faster, but together we always go farther. See you soon in the next training.